Right, greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog Series. It's Thursday, August 28th, 2025, and on Thursdays we talk about knowledge and science. And we're talking about perseverance this week, all week, the Dr. J Vlog Series. And so today, for knowledge and science, we're going to look at the dopamine factor. Most of us understand quite well that anything truly remarkable that we'd like to accomplish or that anyone accomplishes in this life requires perseverance. And some people persevere no matter what the difficulties, no matter what the obstacles. It's quite remarkable. And yet others, less so. Others are more inclined to quit. Maybe they're facing too much adversity or the pressure or whatever, and they just give up. So why is that the case? Well, of course, there are many reasons for that. But today we're just going to be looking at the neuroscience of one factor, the dopamine factor. Okay? So it's sometimes referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter, the chemical that varies information between neurons. And in particular, the brain releases dopamine when we eat food that we crave, when we're engaging in sex. Basically, anything that contributes to pleasure and satisfaction is part of our reward system. And so it's a crucial neurotransmitter that does indeed boost our moods, our motivations, and our attention. And it can also help regulate our movement, learning, and emotional responses. But bottom line is it's also the key fuel that keeps people motivated to persevere and to achieve their goals. So the really good news is that we can actually increase the production of our dopamine by changing our attitudes and our behaviors. So scientists have discovered then that higher levels of dopamine, again, also known as the reward molecule, that's linked to forming lifelong habits such as perseverance. We've long known that dopamine is linked to positive behavioral reinforcement, the ding, ding, ding bell response, and that feeling you get when you accomplish a goal. And indeed, the researchers have discovered that the key receptors of dopamine are actually identifiable. We know what they are, and they act like these little sort of gateways that are essential to enable habit formation. So again, not that you and I think about dopamine much, and not that we've seen it or studied it ourselves, but we've all felt the effects. We know that it's there, right? So how do we trigger the release of dopamine? Well, one of the simplest and basic guaranteed ways of doing that is to simply get involved in some kind of exercise. No, I'm not talking about becoming a gym Nazi or anything crazy. I'm talking about literally just getting up and walking for 10 or 15 minutes, for example. In fact, if not that, I mean, we all have different schedules, but if you were to schedule a 10 or 15-minute walk in the morning first thing or on your way to work, if you're able to walk to work, for example, then that in and of itself will help release dopamine, okay? And indeed, the point is that you'll immediately start to change your neurochemistry. You'll start reinforcing the positive mindset and the will and the experience of persevering and accomplishing. Yeah, believe it or not, a 10-minute walk is an accomplishment. Now, for some of you, if you're an athlete or you're a runner or whatever, you think, oh, what do you mean 10 minutes of walking? It's nothing. For a lot of people, that's something. And if you're one of those people who's not inclined to exercise and you hate gyms or whatever, there are still things that you can do. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything, that takes hours on end. If you just set a very modest or simple goal of, like I said, maybe walking 10 minutes first thing in the morning, you'll immediately start to see an effect. Okay? I think the bigger point is that what you want to do is change this notion of exercise and being active from being a negative, something that, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this. Yeah, I know, no pain, no gain, etc. But it's changing that attitude, how we think about just getting active, that makes a big difference, okay? It can be uncomfortable at times. You might, even be inclined to think, I don't have time, or this is disagreeable for whatever reasons. But what you realize very quickly is that once you get started and once you get into the habit of doing that daily walk, it's remarkable how effortless it starts to become. And more importantly, the dopamine factor that you start feeling so much better about yourself. Okay. Um, and by the way, you'll actually accomplish this within a matter of days or perhaps weeks. You'll go from thinking of exercise as something that you have to do to something that you want to do. Again, pick something that you typically have enjoyed in the past. So my exercise interest and routines are very different, quite different, almost completely different from those of my wife. But it doesn't matter. What works for me works, and what works for her works. So and she said this to me on a number of occasions, just when she dances. And now she's doing it a couple times a week. And heck, I didn't encourage her to do more, because every time after she dances or does a class, whatever, without exception, she feels better about herself. I mean, so that's just one little micro example. And again, there are times where we feel tired, we're sore, or whatever, we're worried about work, etc. And we think, I don't have time to do that. And then I can tell you, again, at least from my experience too, I've said that, and then I'll force myself to do the little exercise routine or whatever it is that I was, I plan to do this on Wednesday, so why don't I got to do it. Well, again, for myself as well, I find that it's incredibly rewarding once I've made that commitment and followed through with it. Once you get into it and you start it, and then, and then afterwards, you feel so much better. Okay, so the key then is, all right, why do then some people, why are they more inclined to persevere and others to quit? So the neuroscientific research shows that, again, it's higher levels of dopamine that might be separating the internal drives that some people have that allows them to persevere, while those with lower dopamine levels are more inclined to give up. And so again, as I mentioned, there's obviously many other factors then that are going to affect our reserves of dopamine and our ability to access them. But nonetheless, there are some actual strategies that we can develop. And I mentioned the exercise one. So how does the dopamine reward system work? Well, basically, we all have an internal reward system, the collection of brain structures that regulate our behavior, that make us feel good when we achieve our goals. And everything necessary for our survival, eating, mating, sleeping, physical exercise, etc. All of this requires some level of planning and commitment and perseverance. And every one of these floods us with the neurochemicals that make us feel good, including dopamine. Okay, so and again, we get this sense of satisfaction, the reward system, etc. Anytime we succeed at achieving something that, especially if it's biologically necessary for our survival, but in effect, we've evolved as a species to have hard work and sweat and perseverance, all of that to trigger the release of dopamine. But unfortunately, in kind of the modern world, a lot of these basic achievements are no longer biologically viewed as a matter of life and death in that sense, and we have so much that's taken care of for us. And so, the dopamine factor becomes less significant in that sense. But again, you can change that. Okay, so here I'm going to talk a little bit about Christopher Bergland, or this is what I'm going to base the rest of this, mini vlog on. I've been reading Bergland's work because he's a retired ultra marathoner, distance runner, and I'm trying to learn more about, and from him, and I view him as kind of an expert in this regard, but I'm trying to figure out from him what I need to do to prepare for my own run across Canada in a couple of years' time. So yeah, I've set a long-term goal, and I know I have to train I can't just decide to go run across Canada and do it. It takes a lot of training and preparation. So, and as you probably know, many of you know, I'll be dribbling a basketball the whole way too. So, okay, so I'm borrowing from Bergland in his book. He wrote a book called The Athlete's Way, and which I'm studying. And in particular, he's identified several methods that can help cue the release of dopamine. Okay, so one is to picture yourself as a human lab rat, kind of like in a Skinnerian experiment of some kind, right? Or, where you're ringing the bell to get the reward kind of thing. So the key is to learn how to associate then perseverance and accomplishing our mission with feeling good. Like I tell my students when they're studying for exam, let's say you need to understand 5 chapters, right? Or you need to read them and they're going to be on the exam. And so what I try to tell them to do is imagine reading, 1 chapter, and then the bell goes off, ding, ding, ding. You've accomplished that, and then give yourself a reward. Take a break. Go do something else, whatever it is that you find rewarding. Now, the reward will come as well through the release of the dopamine, that feeling of accomplishment. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose today. But anyway, but every time you complete a task in your daily life, visualize this as having just done something important or something that allows you to administer a hit of that feel-good dopamine habit that you get to experience as a result, right? And second, you'll understand that all animals instinctively then try to seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? The old pleasure-pain principle. So it's crucial then to flip your perspective on perseverance 180 degrees, okay? Rather than viewing the struggle as painful, think of your perseverance as the doorway to pleasure, an opportunity neurochemically to boost your confidence and to make you feel good. So eliminate the no pain, no gain mantra from your vocabulary, from your thought process. And you should think instead, no effort, no reward. So it's like making your favorite meal, for example. That requires, again, planning and effort on your part. But don't you feel great about consuming the meal once you've done all that work? How good it tastes. And usually you feel even better because you're the one who prepared it. So you get that reward. And again, you can apply that reasoning, that approach to basically almost everything that you do in life, including your sort of basic daily routines. Okay, and then another mechanism. If you don't stick with it, whatever the it might be, you'll actually start to dry up your dopamine reserves. So again, we're designed to work hard and then be rewarded for our efforts biologically. And so if you find yourself then, for whatever reasons, being uninspired or lacking the self-motivation or what have you, then that's a key indicator that you might be on some kind of a downward spiral that can very quickly snowball out of control. And that's something that you want to avoid. It's easy to become bitter or cynical or hopeless, and especially if your dopamine reserves are low. And then it's kind of a self-fulfilling negative prophecy in that sense. But you have the power then to turn that around by consciously looking at everything that you achieve, all these little small daily accomplishments, like, flossing your teeth, solving riddles. There's so many different things that you can enjoy or look at as a way of tapping into your dopamine reserves. I really started taking care of my teeth, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And again, it's something that I'll never go back on. And I quite enjoy it. I used to, brushing and flossing and said, oh, what a hassle. I actually quite enjoy the process now, and I enjoy the rewards, the feeling, having the clean teeth or getting all the little bits of food out from between the teeth, that sort of thing. And then not having cavities anymore. That's, some of these are long-term rewards or payoffs as well. Okay. Okay. And then fourth, expectation and belief can produce dopamine, literally by changing your brain's chemistry. So you can actually work on training your brain to think in more positive terms and to create beliefs about the benefits of whatever it is that you're doing, like even just going to work on a daily basis, right? Or, on one end, to planning the nice long vacation. The point is that through conditioning techniques, your brain can actually learn then to trigger biological changes to reduce pain and suffering. And if you believe that persevering to achieve a goal is worthwhile, or you've defined that as important in your life, guess what? The dopamine will flow in response to that as well. Okay? But you have to also, and this is the next point, be methodical. Create some deadlines, self-imposed deadlines. That's the best kind. So to produce more dopamine, get in the habit then of setting these goals and then completing them, hopefully in a timely manner. I mentioned this, earlier in today's vlog, but then I also talked about my own experience about trying to finish the book a couple of days ago, I think. And basically, I got into the habit then of just going into my office first thing every morning and then working for as long as I had good positive energy and focus and so on. And it might be an hour, it might be 3 hours, maybe longer, but just doing that every day was itself a reward, if that makes sense. Oh, going into the office, yeah, I felt good that I got into the routine, got into the habit, and that in and of itself was the payoff. I didn't always have a great day of writing or research or what have you, but I did have the reward of knowing that I followed through and I kept going. And a lot of times I do feel good. By the way, I like getting into the office early too because it's so quiet and peaceful. So, there's other rewards too that you can build into your daily routines. And I highly recommend that you do that. Look for different ways to amplify the experiences that you're having. Okay? Yeah, even in terms of brushing your teeth, there's ways that you can actually make that even more pleasant and enjoyable. Things that you can do that maybe you didn't used to do with your teeth, and so like a water pick or using those instead of flossing. Actually, I don't even like floss. I'll floss, but I really like the I don't know what you call them even. It's not toothpicks, but they're like these picks, and Anyway, I don't want to get gross, but my point is that there's ways that you can make and enjoy the commitments that you have even more. And again, all of that helps to then release the dopamine because you finished the task and voila. Okay. And it's amped up, in fact, that is the dopamine release when you do have these time constraints. So you've set them for yourself. Okay. Don't let it become a last minute thing or make that your MO. I'm talking about structured efforts, like with many self-imposed deadlines that then allow you to focus and then, again, allow you to reward yourself. And in fact, in my view, it's much better to have these smaller and incremental goals and deadlines. Again, maybe just a short walk in the morning, or like I said, maybe a brief study session or what have you. And then again, that kind of leads into the next point, which is the key to overcoming large obstacles or the mountains that stand before us involves breaking them down into much more doable doses and turning them into molehills, if you will, and then tackling one molehill at a time, right? I used to have to make my bed as a kid, which I just sort of accepted, or I'd get in trouble if I didn't. But it didn't really make a lot of sense, right? Especially my kids thinking, I'm just going to be sleeping in it later tonight. I mean, what's the point of every day making it up when I'm just going to have to go back and sleep in it again? So as an adult, I realized, of course, too, that, I don't have to make the bed anymore, right? And many times I wouldn't. But then I rethought the whole process, and I make the bed now every day, almost, religiously, if you will. Okay. I make the bed too because I want to make sure I didn't lose anything in the bed, or my watch, or my phone, or some clothing, whatever. And then I also just like the aesthetic appeal of the made bed. I've come to appreciate that, and I look at the bed in a new way. And it literally takes me less than a minute. But guess what? I get a hit of dopamine when I'm done too, right? Hey, look how nice that looks. Hey, I really have a nice looking, tidy bedroom. Okay. It's a small chore, but instead I now view it more as a treat and kind of a mini reward. So yes, I do feel good every morning wetting the bed or making the bed. Okay. And if you want, you can actually create your own kind of mini checklist of things that you'd like to accomplish every morning or every day, and then checking them off will systematically release these hits of dopamine. Okay? All right. Finally, be your own cheerleader, if you will. Okay? Learn to say, hey, yeah, I did it. That really, I'm really glad. I'm proud of myself. Okay, look what I accomplished. And let's face it, most people don't really care about your little accomplishments, right? At least the small everyday ones. But, you do. And in fact, even if no one else notices, then you can notice and you can then appreciate your efforts and your accomplishments. And yes, that'll give you a hit of dopamine. Now, that said, it's also good to have supporters in your life too, other cheerleaders. If you have a significant other or a housemate or what have you, ideally, you can maybe be each other's mini cheerleaders, if you will. That's what my wife and I learned to do that a long time ago. And the point is that you extend this positive reinforcement to all the little things that happen as well. Okay? And that kind of is the final point of all of this too, because if you're able to celebrate other people's efforts and accomplishments, then that too gives you a hit of dopamine and an energy boost. Whereas downplaying their accomplishments or being jealous or being negative or whatever, that actually does what? It makes you more miserable. So in boosting others and helping to lift them up, guess what? You're being selfish. You're boosting your own mood, but especially by tapping into your dopamine reserves. So creating a steady flow of dopamine is fundamental to creating the habit of perseverance. And dopamine's available all the time, at least potentially, to all of us, free of charge. The key is to learn then how to tap into your dopamine reserves regularly or on demand, if you will. You have the power then to tap into your own internal dopamine reserves. And learning and conditioning yourself then to self-administer this reward molecule every day can really turn you into not only a more, well, it has so many effects, including becoming a more positive person and becoming that person who's, willing to get out there and go after it, whatever it is that you might hope to accomplish. Okay? So everyone has the power then to learn to become more perseverant, if you will, and to tap into this universal reserve of dopamine. I've just finished another vlog, and yes, I'm already feeling better and enjoying the dopamine hit that gives me. So until next we meet, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for another dopamine hit or two. Take care.